that should say 3.3. Okay. All right. So if we are given f of 3 equals 8 and f prime of 3 equals 5, we're supposed to find f inverse prime of 8. All right. So if we are using that formula, f inverse prime of 8, then we will have 1 over f prime of f inverse of 8. And that means we've got to do f inverse of 8 first. What would f inverse of 8 be? It is 3. And they make it fairly easy on you here because there's only the 8's the only number there, right? So it makes it fairly easy. So we got f prime of 3. Okay? And then what is f prime of 3? It is 5, right? It's given to you right there. So we get 1/5 as our answer. Sometimes they put stuff like this on the exam. It's as easy as these problems can really be because they didn't try to like confuse you with extra information, right? There's no extra numbers that you don't use. So I have seen them on the AP exam like this, but it would be the most simple way they're going to ask this question. Let's look at the next one. Okay, this one asks us for f inverse prime of -2, which means we're going to be doing 1 over f prime of f inverse of -2. So we got to start with that f inverse of -2, meaning that we're looking for the y coordinate being 2, or -2. Obviously, that's got to happen here because that's only -2 that you see. But even if there were other distractors, we're looking at the f, right? So we need the x that goes with it, which is 6. So we got 1 over f prime of 6. And they tell us that f prime of 6 is 1/2. And dividing fractions is easy as pie. We flip the second and multiply. We're just going to get 2 for our answer. Okay, here. All right. Okay. This is sort of like a little bit of a level up because this one is going to have distractors, right? So there's going to be several numbers here that we don't use. It also tells us that G is the inverse of F, and we're supposed to find G prime of 3. So their notation's a little bit different because they're not using inverse notation. So I don't know why I like, even though it's like complicated looking, I prefer inverse notation. It helps me like recognize what I'm looking for here. So if you feel the same way, possibly because your teachers led you that way, or maybe it just makes sense to you, G is our inverse, right? So what they're really asking for is F inverse prime of 3, which means we will be doing 1 over F prime of F inverse of 3. Or if you would rather, you can use the G notation for your F inverse as well. So we got to start with F inverse of 3. What is F inverse of 3? What is it, Hallie? It is 1, right? We're looking at this line right here, which would be like our y coordinate, correct? Right there's our 3. The 1 is what goes with it. So we've got 1 over F prime of 1. And Hallie, what is F prime of 1? It is 2. All right, swing over here and use that. And it's 2, so 1/2 would be our answer. Okay. Our next one here, we got G prime of 6. G is the inverse of F. So this is really asking us for F inverse prime of 6. So that's going to be 1 over F prime of F inverse of 6. So, Bo, what is F inverse of 6? Is 2, right? We're looking on this column right here. The 2 is what goes with it. So, 1 over F prime of 2. And, Bo, what is F prime of 2? Good. We'll get 1 over 1/2, right? Because that is 1/2 there. And that is going to be 2 whenever we flip and multiply. Okay, here. Okay. Now, here's the most complicated way they can ask you these types of questions. They've given you 2 functions, F and G, and a bunch of numbers with a bunch of repeats, right? Like if they ask you something about a -1, there's 4 of them up there. If they ask you something about a 0, there's 4 of them up there, so it makes it kind of difficult to deal with. So this is the most complicated way they can ask you these types of problems. So if they ask for G inverse prime of 5, then you would be finding 1 over G prime of G inverse of 5. F and G are not inverses anymore. They don't tell us that for these problems, right? So we would start with G inverse of 5. Who thinks they know what it is? What do you think, Zach?
No, I mean, wait. Yeah.
0, okay?
All the
yeah, so it gets a little confusing. We're looking at this line right here. This is your G of X line, which is like your Y coordinates for the G function. You don't use the F stuff at all right here because it's asking you about G. So we're looking at 5. The X it goes with up here is 0. So that means we'll have 1 over G prime of 0. And Zach, what is G prime of 0? 6. So we get 1 over 6 here. So that takes this back down. G prime of 0 is 6. Okay. Your assignment today is going to have some of these like number 6 mixed in. Does number 6 have anything to do with inverses? F and G are not inverses. It doesn't have inverse notation anywhere. This is not an inverse problem, but they're going to be mixed in. So watch out for them. So if I want to take the derivative of K, what have I got to use? Quotient rule. So I will say K prime of X is low D high, so that would be F prime of X, minus high D low all over low squared. So K prime of 2 would be G of 2 times F prime of 2 minus F of 2 times G prime of 2 all over G of 2 squared. And so if I were looking for this, I really would only be looking at this column right here because this is where my X coordinate is 2. So I would have G of 2 would be 1, and then F prime of 2 is -1, and then F of 2 is 2, and G prime of 2 is 0, all over G of 2, which is 1 squared. So that is going to give me negative 1 over 1, and I will get negative 1 as my answer. These will be mixed in. They don't have anything to do with inverses, so watch out. Watch out for those. And then our last one here, we're going to have 1 over f prime of f inverse of 4. So if we look at that, f inverse of 4. What is f inverse of 4 going to be? Okay, negative 1. All right, so we're looking right here. We're looking at the f line, which is like our y coordinates for the f function, right? 4 is here. The x that goes with it is negative 1. So that would give us 1 over f prime of, what did I just say? Negative 1. And then f prime of negative 1, what is it? Negative 2. So I would have 1 over negative 2. So negative 1/2 would be my answer there. Well, I do have one more. Let's scroll down far enough there. Questions on that? All right, this one right here will get you a lot of times. All right, does this one have anything to do with the inverse? It does not. It does have a negative 1 here, but it's not an inverse notation, right? It's just the number you're plugging in. So for this one, if you take the derivative of this, what's the derivative of g of x? G prime of x. All right, what about the derivative of x times f of x? Got to use the product rule right here. And everybody forgets to use the product rule. But you're going to have to use the product rule here. You got x times the derivative of f, which will be f prime of x, plus f times the derivative of x, which is just 1 there. So if you're finding h prime of negative 1, it is going to be g prime of negative 1 minus, I'm going to distribute that negative here, so minus negative 1 f prime of negative 1 minus f of negative 1. This one turned to a negative because I distributed that negative there. Okay, so we are going to go back up to our table. We're looking, all of our x coordinates are negative 1. So now we are looking at this column right here. And g prime of negative 1 is 1. Minus negative 1 times f prime of negative 1 is negative 2. And then minus f of negative 1, f of negative 1 is 4. So 1 minus 2 minus 4 is going to give us negative 5. Yes. Oops. Let's see here. I skipped one. I will just, if we can do that last one, we can do that one. So let's just skip it there. But it's the same idea.